This is Daily Blast Live. We're talking about what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh.
Are you insane? This is a sham.
No. Nope.
Y'all, just stop.
Finally here. Drum roll.
Welcome to Daily Blast Live. I'm Erica Cobb here with Sam, Al, and Tori. And today we're doing things just a little differently because today we're celebrating Juneteenth.
Yeah, baby.
Also known as Freedom Day. So happy Juneteenth, everyone. We've got a very special show for you because today, for the first time in our federal history, our country is honoring the emancipation of enslaved Black Americans.
Yes.
Yes. Right, exactly. Juneteenth is officially being recognized as a federal holiday, and more Americans have been participating in celebrations. But there is so much work that still needs to be done. So, Al, I really, as a Black man, as a father, how do you talk to your children about Juneteenth?
Before I even get to that, Erica, I do want to say that you said that we're all celebrating, but you left out Sam's papers that are on the desk. They're celebrating. They're almost like their own entity. So yes, Sam
has a lot of notes going on. Okay.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. Honestly, and I kind of talked about this on the show before, Tori. It's hard to talk about race with your kids because as soon as you broach that subject, especially as they're coming up, first, second grade, that you're taking some of that innocence away. It feels like almost like you're telling them there's no Santa.
Yeah.
It's this weird thing as parents where you want to get them ready for the world, but you're like, let's get them ready tomorrow. Today, let's get ice cream, and you just pretend everything's okay. But this is such a celebratory thing for me. Talking about our past and talking about where we're going, but understanding that we cannot go anywhere without knowing where we started, where this journey started for a lot of your great-grandparents that are not as far gone as you think. Some of them I even knew. So it's a big deal to me to make sure that when I do talk about difficult subjects, I do it with joy, I do it with fun, I do let them know the seriousness of what happened, how the things that happened, people were reprehensible, but also this is a part of the human experience, and unfortunately we're not unique in this. What we can do that's unique is move forward with the grace of God behind us.
Yeah.
How do you have children through CASA that you have guardianed? You have, I don't know if that's the appropriate term.
Well, advocated
for, and you have nieces, nephews. How do you introduce Juneteenth to them, and how do you celebrate with them?
Well, my brothers, who are the only siblings that have children, and they have two apiece, and they have been, they and their wives are amazing when it comes to approaching any subject. They're a little bit more out of the box thinkers, and I appreciate that because growing up for us, our parents were very much affected by segregation. They were very much affected by Jim Crow. I'm very familiar with the history of at least one side of my family, to the point that only 2 greats ago, my grandfather Amos was born a slave and was able to get his freedom by joining the Union's soldiers. So those things are very clear to me, but I really,
I know.
Yeah,
not that long ago,
right?
Wow, yeah,
just 2 greats. And Al, what you said was so important to me because we grew up with our parents saying, you're not like everyone else. Don't do this because you will get in trouble.
Right.
It was always this very much, and I would get so angry and so frustrated. And I recognize now that my parents were just trying to protect me from a world that they knew was cruel and prejudiced. And that's how it manifested. So I appreciate the way that you approach having that conversation.
It's the luxury I have because things are different than when our parents came up. So
but we still have a lot of work to do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And as white women, we need to be part of that allyship.
I was going to say, what a real alliance means is sitting here and having this and hearing this conversation. That's exactly
well said.
And action, absolutely. Well, we thought of the perfect way to celebrate. Our next guest holds a state and national title for Miss Juneteenth, which highlights self-empowerment, community service, and education while honoring Black culture at the young and impressive age of 18 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Acia Spinks joins us today. Acia, welcome to DBL.
Look at that tiara. Yes. That's a crown, honey.
Oh my gosh, we are so good. Girl, I realize that you are in the car because you are on the move. You have some queen duties to get to, so thank you for your time.
Acia, we are so honored to have you here. We want you to take the opportunity to tell our viewers a little bit about your journey as Miss Juneteenth.
Okay, well, I'm actually the second ever state title holder for Miss Juneteenth, and I'm the second national title holder for being Miss Juneteenth as well. I grew up celebrating Juneteenth. I'm originally from Alabama, so I moved to Oregon in middle school. When I moved to Oregon, I joined Juneteenth because it wasn't a lot of people that looked like me at all. I drove 2 hours away to make it to a program at 15, and I couldn't drive, but it was really an investment on myself and my future. I recently visited Galveston, Texas, which is the birthplace of Juneteenth, and I was able to actually touch bricks that slaves made and laid in the walls. And it was very emotional and breathtaking, but it was just, it was real. Like, it letting me know, like, this isn't a joke. This is really your history. So it was amazing for me. Wow. This journey is
touching history.
Amazing.
I'm sitting here and I'm looking at you in the car and I'm kind of dadding out. I'm like, how far is that steering wheel to her? Like, make sure the seatbelt's there. Make sure you're far enough.
She's pulled over. She's pulled over.
My dad is coming through me from the heavens, making sure that you're safe and pulled far enough off the road, because you never know what people are doing.
Yes, I'm safe.
All right, good.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. You need to understand that we are here for you. It's an honor to speak to you and to learn from you. And so I have to ask you, when did you first learn about Juneteenth's history? Because, it was probably before I did.
Yes, I grew up celebrating Juneteenth. Me and my family, we're from Alabama, so Juneteenth is nothing new. I was actually Miss Little Juneteenth when I was 3 years old. So before
we need that picture. We need that picture.
Yes, I'm gonna find it.
Okay.
I have to find it.
Send it to our producer.
But, yes, I will. But yes, I actually had a plan of being Miss Juneteenth before it was even a thing. I grew up wanting this, and I literally manifested it into myself. I wished for this since I was 3, and I'm now 18, and I'm your national Miss Juneteenth of 2022, and it's crazy.
Oh man, I can't believe you're fantastic. All right, I got to ask you a question. As someone who educates others on Juneteenth, what is a common misconception you hear often? And we do seders like Passovers, and you teach the story because you want to pass it down. What's something that people are getting wrong?
Yeah. I feel like people, the most common misconception is thinking that it's only a Black holiday. Juneteenth did not only change the lives of Black people. The 4th of July did not only change the lives of white people. So why can't we celebrate our Independence Day? Why can't it get the same love that we celebrate chores with? I just don't feel like that's right. And the main question that I've gotten since having this title is, what is Juneteenth? And I just think people aren't educated on it at all, even though Juneteenth was established in 1863 to be exact, but wasn't enacted until 1865. And it was just acknowledged in 2021, and it's now a federal holiday. We're celebrating it in 2022. And people ask me, what is Juneteenth? Juneteenth is my history.
Wow. Right.
That's the clip right there.
Yeah.
That clip right there. It's our history. Yep.
Girl,
Me too.
Please tell the story. But what do people need to? I'm serious. Like, this testimony is amazing. Now, what do you think that people need to know to ensure a better future for all of us?
I feel like the main thing people need to know is their history. History doesn't do anything but repeat itself. And to stop it is by knowing what's going on. That's the only way we can make a better world for ourselves and for our future, which is the youth. I have a 4-year-old little brother who's a Black man growing up in America that I worry about every day. I shouldn't have to worry about my brother going to school and not making it home at night. School is supposed to be safe. It's not supposed to be, they're not supposed to be in danger. I shouldn't have to worry about what is happening to him from the teachers or strangers they let walk into schools.
Right.
I just don't feel like that's okay.
I have to ask, I got to jump in and ask you this question. We're a little short on time, but our audience, we are going to follow you, whether you want it or not. We're going to stalk you. We're all like fun, loving stalking.
Oh my God.
Okay. There's loving stalking.
There's not.
We want to follow you throughout your incredible future. So just let us in. Like, what do you got going on after high school?
She just graduated.
Just so young.
Yes.
Like, I can't imagine where your future is going to take you.
Yes, I just graduated last Saturday. My plan, thank you, yes. My plan is to actually take over the world, but this is just a beautiful start. I want to become a criminal justice lawyer. Growing up with my dad incarcerated, and he actually missed my graduation because of that. He's my biggest motivation on the incarceration system, especially being from Alabama. They're actually building a mega system and not worried about our school systems, which is crazy. So I want to become a criminal justice lawyer, and I want to help wrongly convicted inmates on death row.
Yes.
And you know,
what a gift you are to this world.
We already, you've spoken this, you created this, your platform, you are Miss Juneteenth. That was something you manifested. We are so proud of you.
That's right.
And we know you are going big places and changing so many lives. Isia, sis, thank you so much for coming on DBL today.
Thank you for having me.
What an honor.
Thank you so much.
Drive safely.
Yeah, I was like, be safe.
Thank you, I will.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, imagine being the direct descendant of leaders in American history. We sat down with Kenneth Morris Jr., who shares some personal stories about his iconic relatives.
Closed captioning provided by...
After 4 bloody years, the Union defeated the Confederacy to win the Civil War and abolish slavery in April 1865. There were nearly 4 million slaves in the U.S. at that time. Union armies began marching through the southern states, freeing thousands of slaves each day. The news took months to reach Texas, the westernmost state in the Confederacy. On June 19, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger and 2,000 Union troops rode into Galveston, Texas, and told slaves of their freedom. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves. Granger's words spread through Texas. All at once, slaves found out the war was over and they were free. Their joyous, spontaneous celebration gave birth to Juneteenth. Juneteenth, a combination of the words June and 19th, commemorates when the last enslaved people in the South were finally set free. Many slaves were met with violence, even death, when they tried to leave. Yet the promise of freedom extinguished fear and fueled generations of indestructible people. Former slaves gathered on Juneteenth the next year, and the year after that. And over the decades, Black communities observed the holiday with festive family gatherings, colorful parades, and bountiful barbecues. Texas became the first state to make Juneteenth an official holiday in 1980. Since then, 49 states and D.C. also recognize the holiday. In 2021, President Biden signed the bill making June 19th the 11th federal holiday in the United States. Juneteenth is a celebration of independence, the day all Americans were truly free.
Imagine that you had to dispel doubts about your full humanity every time you picked up a pen. Having to fight that battle over and over every day. That was the life of Frederick Douglass.
Pride in our ancestors takes on a whole new meaning when you're the direct descendant of iconic leaders in American history like Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington. This is a reality for Kenneth B. Morris Jr. He's the 3rd-generation grandson of Frederick Douglass and the 2nd of Booker T. Washington. Earlier, we spoke with him. Take a look.
Wow. Okay, so first and foremost, we have so many questions, but how did you learn that you were directly related to 2 major American historical figures, Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass?
You know, there was never a time when someone sat me down and said, hey, we've got something really important to tell you. I've just always have known. I spent all of my summers in Frederick Douglass's summer beach house and on the shores of the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland in a place called Highland Beach. And in every room, there were images of my ancestors. And I was probably about 5 or 6 years old when I started to notice that my ancestors were on statues, they were on money, postage stamps, schools were named for them, bridges were named for them, and everywhere I turned, I could kind of start to feel like I was in this long, vast shadow. So it's just something that I was born into and I've always known.
It gave me chills hearing that.
I want to go a little bit deeper with this. Can you share with our audience the love story that connected these incredible bloodlines?
It happened on my mother's side of the family. So my mother's mother, Nettie Hancock Washington, was Booker T. Washington's granddaughter. And my mother's father, Frederick Douglass III, was Frederick Douglass's great-grandson. So my grandparents met in 1941 at Tuskegee Normal School and Institute, which is a school that Booker T. Washington founded in 1881. They happened to be on campus the same day. My grandmother was rushing across campus to meet friends. My grandfather was headed to eat in the student cafeteria. They literally bumped into each other, didn't know that the other descended from an historic family, and they fell in love at first sight and wound up getting married 3 months later.
Oh my
and
God.
when my mom, Nettie
Meant to
Washington
be.
Douglass, was born, she was the person that united the bloodline. She was an only child, and so I have the honor and privilege of being the first male to carry the dual lineage. So it was truly a love story.
Oh my God. What a cute meet. Can you talk about that? I mean, wow.
And you must be like a superhero.
Right?
Like, just like about like legendary bloodline.
Unbelievable.
I was excited about the weekend. I feel like a loser.
I know what you mean. You are. No, I'm kidding. I do want to get to this. The HBO documentary, Frederick Douglass in 5 Speeches, is so interesting, this idea. It features famous black voices sharing his speeches. However, your iconic grandfather's voice was never recorded. So we don't know what Frederick Douglass sounds like, which I think is so interesting. Lincoln famously had a very high-pitchy noise that we didn't know yet. What's it like trying to imagine the sound of Frederick Douglass in his speeches?
I can go back to my childhood again and being about 5 or 6 years old, and there was this larger-than-life portrait of Frederick Douglass that was hanging in that beach house at the top of the stairs. And I remember looking at him and thinking, man, you look mean, because I didn't understand that he was very deliberate and intentional in the way that he went about presenting himself through photography. He never wanted to have people look at him and not recognize him as a man worthy of freedom, worthy of citizenship. So I remember looking at that portrait, and as I would try and sneak past it, his eyes would follow me.
Wow.
And I always imagined in my little boy imagination this deep, booming baritone bellowing down upon my tiny person, and he would say, "You will do great things, young man." And so the pressure started pretty young, but he was said to have this booming baritone voice, and you're right, it was never recorded, so we can only imagine what he would have sounded like.
Sounds like that, I hope.
Absolutely. So listen, I want to hear a little bit about the work that you do now, but I want to go back to the pressure. Did you feel pressure to follow in the footsteps of your historical grandfathers? You kind of just touched on it.
When I was younger, the few times that I told people of my relationship to my ancestors, nobody ever believed me. And so I never thought that it was a point worth arguing. And I had a few teachers and a principal that thought that I was not telling the truth when I brought Abraham Lincoln's cane for show and tell one day. So if you can imagine being a child and people not believing you. So I really grew up decisively disengaged from my lineage until Providence called in my life, which happened in 2005. And I read a National Geographic magazine, and the cover story was 21st Century Slaves. And it was an article about human trafficking and modern day slavery existing all over the world, including right here in the United States. And kind of had this moment one evening when I was listening to my daughters getting ready for bed down the hallway, and they were laughing and playing. And I was reading another article about a 12-year-old girl who was forced to be a sex slave in the brothels of Southeast Asia. And when I walked in to say goodnight to my girls, I had this moment where I couldn't look them in the eyes. I couldn't look them in the eyes and walk away and not do something about this. So my mom and I started the Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives in 2007 with a mission to bring human trafficking prevention education into the classrooms, into K through 12 schools, which we've done successfully all over the country.
Wow. If you're ever in Denver, dinner on us.
Yes.
I want to hear stories all day.
I'll take you up on that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's incredible. Now, this is a big turn here. There are some people who say you once resembled Bruno Mars.
Oh, I see it.
Okay?
Oh, my goodness.
So, you can see it.
I would say identical,
Now, right?
not resemble.
Right? Who pointed this out to you, sir?
My younger daughter, Nicole, and her friend. You guys are good with your research. In fact, You know, people actually had me worried. So many people were saying that to me, especially when I was younger, that I was trying to think back where I was the year that he was born. So I was far away from Hawaii.
You're all, where was I? Exactly.
That was a curveball.
Maybe that was another bloodline. Thank you so much for joining us, Kenneth. You were doing such.
But I wouldn't mind him knocking on my door and saying, "Hey, Daddy."
Exactly. Kenneth, you're doing great work. You really are. You're following in those footsteps.
Absolutely.
You should be very proud. DBL Nation, check out Frederick Douglass in 5 speeches now, streaming on HBO Max. We'll be right back.
Thank you so much.
Such an
It was
honor.
amazing.
Thank you all.
Home prices and rents continue to rise, but the federal minimum wage hasn't changed since 2009. One viral tweet claimed, quote, "The average rent in the U.S. hit a new record high of $1,827 last month. On the federal minimum wage of $7.25, people take home $1,256 a month." Let's verify. Has typical rent in America exceeded the income earned on federal minimum wage? Our sources, the Department of Labor, and 3 real estate sites that produce research on rent prices. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 per hour, so let's calculate monthly income. On a 40-hour work week, if you worked 52 weeks a year, that comes out to $1,256 per month, just like the tweet claimed. Now, of course, some states have minimum wages higher than that, but we'll come back to that. The tweet says the average rent in America is $1,827 per month. That number comes from Realtor.com's April estimate of median rent. It's based off units advertised on the site in the top 50 metro areas and only includes studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom apartments. Redfin does a similar estimate based on listed units of all sizes. Its number for April was $1,962 per month. And Zillow's estimate actually tries to account for all rents, not just new listings. Their national typical rent number, $1,927 per month. All of those rent estimates are significantly higher than the $1,256 per month you can make on federal minimum wage. That means we can verify that the tweet is truthful when it claims typical rent has exceeded the income earned on the federal minimum wage. So what wage would you have to make to afford typical rent in the U.S.? Using Zillow's 1927 estimate, you need to make $11.22 per hour. And that's just to make rent. It doesn't account for taxes or other living costs. 16 states plus D.C. have minimum wages that high, but the cost of rent in those states may be higher than the national estimates. With your Verify, I'm Casey Decker.
Welcome back. Don't assume that a new landscape will break the bank. It's time for some DBL home tips presented by American Home Shield. A smart landscape design plan can offset some home maintenance costs. Here are some money savings ideas to spruce up your yard. First, consider cooling your home by placing trees in the right spots around your house. This can lower energy costs. Next, buy native plants. See what plants grow naturally in your local parks and incorporate them into your landscape. This helps conserve water. And grow your own fruits and vegetables. This labor of love should lower your grocery bill as well. And remember, an American Home Shield home warranty plan helps cover many things homeowners insurance leaves out, like breakdowns of major components of home systems and appliances. So you can rest easy knowing you're ready for whatever breakdowns inevitably strike next. Visit ahs.com to find a plan that's right for you. We'll be right back.
Promotional consideration is brought to you by...
Do you need some good news in your life? A little sunshine to brighten up those cloudy gray days? Well, then do I have a story for you. One day, a few New York doctors at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center had an idea, and they wanted to organize an experimental study. Now, the funding they received was so teeny tiny that the study only included 12 patients, and they were all recently diagnosed with colorectal cancer, which is the second most common cause of cancer deaths in the U.S. this year. All 12 of them were in stage 2 or 3 of the disease. All 12 had yet to try chemo or surgery, and the cancer they did have had not yet spread to other organs. It's also super important to note that all 12 had tumors with a specific genetic mutation. It's called mismatch repair deficiency, or MMRD tumors. These guys are quite resistant to chemo and radiation. The experiment rested on a drug called dostarlimab. Doctors have used it before to treat other cancers, but never rectal cancer. This drug is a type of drug called an immune checkpoint inhibitor. And instead of going ahead and like killing the cancer cells itself, this drug, this little nifty little guy, he goes into the body, he identifies and unmasks cancer cells Scooby-Doo style, and then binds to it and helps the body's own immune system attack those cells efficiently. So the 12 patients, they received an infusion of dostarlimab once every 3 weeks for 6 months. This treatment, and this is super important, was supposed to be followed up with chemotherapy and surgery for the participants. But let me tell you something amazing. Not one of the 12 patients needed it. 6 months after beginning the drug, all 12 were in complete remission, with nary a tumor being detected from any of them. And not one patient relapsed during the follow-up period, which was up to 2 years. Best of all, the 12 who were preparing for these life-changing procedures, if this didn't work, had virtually zero complications or side effects. You just don't hear this. 100% rate of cancer remission, it's unheard of. Quote, "I believe this is the first time this has happened in the history of cancer," said medical oncologist Louis Diaz Jr. The co-author of the paper, Dr. Andrea Sersic, added the experiment resulted in, quote, "a lot of happy tears." Now, the British pharmaceutical company GlaxoSmithKline will be expanding the budget and the study to include more patients and to see if the results can be replicated. But it does offer us a light at the end of a very, very long tunnel. Now you know.
We know sunscreen is essential to cut the risk of skin cancer, reducing wrinkles, and even slowing the effects of aging. But a new report from the Environmental Working Group says about 75% of sunscreens on the market have inferior protection. It comes after several studies found some sunscreens contain the chemicals oxybenzone and octinazate, and they've been linked to hormone issues and shorter pregnancies. More research is needed, and the FDA has asked manufacturers to test more. But so far, the agency has allowed products containing the chemicals to stay on the market. So what is safe to use? Turns out, old-fashioned zinc oxide. You know, the stuff that leaves you with a white nose? It acts as a physical barrier to the sun instead of being absorbed into your skin like chemical sunscreens. And that's connecting the dots.
Welcome back. We love sharing your comments. Andrea says, it's amazing how much of Kenneth's story was rooted in oral history that survived generations. We started at the top of the show talking about the importance of speaking with your elders.
Yes.
Please do that. Do that today. And Ashton said, Miss Juneteenth is really making a difference at such a young age. I love her spirit.
She makes me feel
Confidence, too.
She makes me feel good about the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These kids are different.
Yep. They built
These
different.
Young adults.
You have yes, absolutely. DBL is new every day. We'll see you soon. Happy Juneteenth.